Happy birthday, Daddy.
Thank you so much for coming. This is our second meeting, and last night was wonderful. A lot of good things were brought up, and good discussion happened. So welcome. We're actually excited to do this again. We'd love to hear from you guys, and it's always fun to find solutions to problems and talk about what's going well at the same time. So. Last night we started by having each of the teachers who teach this age group speak of some of the highlights and just some of the stuff we're doing right now. It'll help prompt questions and make you think of, different little things. If you have specific questions, make sure you present those tonight. And if you would like, there's a box and you can leave an anonymous question if you'd like to do that. I'll go check it in the middle of all this. To see. So, and let's see, Miss Jordan, as you know, teaches language arts and social studies for us. She'll speak, Miss Stacy will speak, and Miss Elizabeth will speak. And then we'll just start this wonderful open forum conversation that will bring up a lot. Miss Jo, you want to start?
Alright, so I'm Miss Jordan. I teach social studies and English. And what I've really loved this year is watching the kids grow both academically and socially. And since I teach two subjects and often I get to integrate them, it's really cool to see certain kids grasp on to writing or more of the critical thinking in the social studies and getting to grow just collaboratively and work on major projects together. Right before Christmas, we worked on the Dust Bowl, was my social studies unit, as well as the Great Depression. And so just talking about hardships and how we get through them and how that kind of relates to aspects of certain things with our economy today. And right now we're talking about World War II. We just really went into the causes of it, and now we're going to actually start expanding into what happened in Europe. And then as far as the writing aspect goes, I developed grammar packets that were based off skills that I believe build upon each other. So the lowest level, you've got your nouns and your verbs and subjects and predicates, and then each packet will continue to get harder as they go. And we just finished working on, and now we're re-editing final, an essay to apply those skills of writing. So that's kind of what's been going on in my world.
So in our science world, first of all, your kids are amazing scientists. I hope that was reflected in the comments and the report cards. I have a lot of fun investigating things with them. We spent the majority of the fall semester evaluating the scientific method, and instead of just going over the steps of what the method is, we actually started by examining a problem, developing an experiment to test the problem. We have a lot of fun testing things. And for instance, the other day we were having a conversation about how chemicals can break down over time. And someone in class, and I think it was the Super 2 class, said, "Is that why milk goes bad?" And so then we had a whole conversation about bacteria, different than true a chemistry discussion, but that really bacteria chemically can change something like milk. And so we ended up with a milk taste test. So I brought two different containers of milk in. One was in a translucent milk jug, and the other was in a paper carton. And so we tested whether or not light has any effect on the taste of milk, and after it's been stored, and what types of containers can it affect the flavor. And I really didn't say a word. I didn't tell him yes or no. I said, well, let's just test it. And that's an easy test to do. And so we spent that class period for an hour testing it, and it was awesome. Not only did your kids enjoy it wholeheartedly and pull different people in, everybody was tasting milk. Everybody that wasn't lactose intolerant, and even some that were. Jacob came in proudly saying, "I took a pill, I'm ready to go, let's taste it." I was psyched. So those types of experiments and design of experiments are really important to get them to understand why they should care about the scientific method, why it's even pertinent to their life, and how do you ask a question and then test the question they're asking. Because it is difficult to get kids to in on, well, that's not the question you're asking, so that experiment doesn't really apply to that question. Now, you can ask a different question and the experiment that you created would apply to that. And just kind of moving those concepts around so that it's not a linear idea that first you have to come up with a hypothesis and then you have to design an experiment. But really and truly, we kind of manipulate all aspects of that. And sometimes we go backwards to forwards. Sometimes you really know why something happens, but you haven't ever tested it. It's just a given that that's a fact. And so I asked them to test those things, even things that they know are fact, and how did they become fact. So we had a great deal of time at the beginning of the semester studying that. That is a skill that carries through in everything we do. And it's really important in how they evaluate science. The rest of the first semester was primarily spent on chemistry concepts, atomic theory, chemical bonding, physical and chemical changes, how to tell if something's just physically changed, like tearing a piece of paper in half, or how something has chemically changed and is no longer what it started out as. For instance, burning a piece of paper. So very simple concepts and ideas, but you can build on those things. And as I spoke last night to the other parents, I'm trying to build a fluency with your kids in science, and not lose the curiosity that really allows them that free thinking and collaborative element of, well, if this happens, this could happen. And they talk to each other and they work on it and we develop ideas. Your kids are very curious, and I thrive on that. And I know I have a high school background. I taught high school science, physics, and chemistry and biology. And in high school, you don't have as much natural curiosity available to you. I don't know what happens. I wish it was the case, but the majority of them just aren't as curious as your kids are at this age. So I thrive on that. What we are doing going forward is we just started for different groups. For instance, if you have a super one child, right now they're building a worm farm. We're vermicomposting. We're talking about recycling nutrients, also invertebrates and the biology of invertebrates. If you're a super two parent, your child is doing a junk mail project, waste and recycling and resources and how those are pushed through our economy, our environment, and we log junk mail, and right now they love it. I don't know why. But we'll be calculating the environmental impact over the next couple of weeks. And then if you have an Excel kid, right now we're in the middle of a huge sleep project. I sat down with the Excel kids and I said, it's project-based learning time. You talk to me about what you want and I will make things happen within the bounds of the benchmarks and the standards that I need to cover, but you all are deciding in what direction we go. So right now, Excels are doing a brain study sleep project, and it's really great. So I love teaching your kids science, and I hope that it comes home to you that they are willing to explore these concepts and that they love their school and all the ideas we have, and we're just going to keep chugging away at it. So, Liz?
All right. I teach math. I love working with every single one of your children. They're amazing. They have great minds. What we're doing, well, what we've been doing, is your children have learned computation this year. We did some place value, we did addition and subtraction, we did multi-digit multiplication and long division. That was a huge push in the beginning of the semester. The super twos and XLs did fractions first semester and finished up with that. And we spent a bit more time with super ones on computation because that was something that they needed at that point. In addition to that, your kids did something that I think I call it daily math. And that allowed them to work on concepts that we weren't necessarily studying that day, but it kind of spanned the whole gambit of math concepts. And so they would do a daily math one day and it might have a perimeter and area question, or it might have a statistics question. So that was the way I like to think of my curriculum as kind of a spiral that kind of overlaps itself, because if you learn something one day and you don't practice it, then it's kind of worthless. So your kids have been and will be coming back to concepts and touching on them as we go along. In addition, I know you guys are all super interested about their math facts. We worked on multiplication and division facts over the whole semester to varying degrees of success. Some of your children memorized all of them to 12. Some of your children memorized more. But the cool thing was that no kid is the same with how they learn it, and it was really fun to explore the different ways that they learn and remember things. And countless times a kid came to me and taught me a new way to remember things, and we shared that, and that's kind of spawned this idea that Jackie and I have been working on, which is a think tank. Number fluency is a huge priority in this math program, and what we're hoping to do is get all the kids together and talk about how they do these things in their heads, because there's some kids that are super efficient with them and some kids that aren't as efficient, but everybody has a different way, and my way might work for you, or it might not work for Jackie, but Jackie's way might work for somebody else, so I'm really, really excited about that. I'm also excited about our new assessment tools that I've been kind of trying to use. Your kids that just learn fractions, rather than a test, which you guys know that's not a big deal here, but they basically wrote down everything they learned. It took them a really long time. Some of your children are doing that, but this is something that, like, for example, I knew how to convert a mixed number to an improper fraction. They wrote it out in words, they used examples. Not only does this tell me that they know how to do it, but now this is a reference for them to look back on throughout the year and next year and hopefully for as long as they need it. Another thing I'm super excited about is watching your kids use math to create art. That has been an amazing tool for learning, assessing, and exploring math and numbers. And
Sophie, can you take care of that for me, please?
here's kind of a sad example because it just got wet, but even something as simple as pipe cleaners on a piece of paper is geometry. So that's been really amazing. And if you guys check your files, your children's files, and please take them home at the end of the night. If you haven't seen them lately, you'll see tons of math art in there. So we're going to work on fractions some more with the super ones. And you guys maybe saw this in your report card, but we're going to hit geometry, statistics, probability, and problem-solving strategies this semester. That's it.
I'd like to add to each of the things these teachers are doing that when I get to bop around here this year finally, it's so wonderful to be able to peek my head in instead of having my own class schedule. These guys, I don't think we have one student, correct me if I'm wrong, who doesn't actually love math. And thank you. That's because of your strategies. The same with, now language arts is a little trickier because some love to write and some don't, and some love to learn history and some don't. But we've got no miserable students, that's for sure. And they all absolutely adore science too. So the curious little absorbing minds are just so much fun to see. So thank you, teachers, wonderful job. Now, we'd like to open it up to you if you have questions, and please feel free to be critical. Please feel free to bring up problems. This is your opportunity to do so. Anything you'd like to say or any input you'd like to give would be great.
Or if you just wonder what in the heck we do, or how in the heck I get that question a lot from people that aren't involved in Orsch. It's like, I hear good things, I just can't figure out how you do it. I can't figure out how you have all them in so you can ask questions about that too.
Do you have a good answer for that? Because I get tripped up when I try to answer that question.
It's a long discussion after that. I can get a little long-winded. I'll try to keep it brief.
Come on through, John.
I have a question. How do you guys decide what content to teach? I'm especially interested in math. Like how do you decide what's the appropriate stuff to do right now?
Well, I started with the standards, which are vague at best. But then
These are the standards for.
the Colorado.
Okay.
But then I poured through dozens of textbooks and
We're all right there.
over here too. So looked at what their scope and sequence was. In addition, I try to keep a dialogue with the other teachers that we have. Jamie teaches algebra, about what she wants your kids to know for algebra when they get there. Anything super ridiculous I take out. Because I don't want to fill your kids' minds with stuff that's not important to them. And I basically try to hit everything. And yeah, that was that. Sorry, maybe that was a little incomplete.
We have lots of resources for that type of thing. Textbooks are one of the very best because they're laid out in a school year's worth. They're laid out into chapters. Elizabeth and I have had tons of fun philosophical conversations, such as we should really spend an entire year on probability and statistics. That would be valuable. Kids would dig in as deeply as they can. Darn it, we can't do that because someday they're going to head back into the real world, and they will have needed to cover, you know, the general elements of mathematics. So as much as we'd love to do that with your kids, and there are, you know, we have resources that, in fact, I just bought Elizabeth a new book last week, and she said, this is amazing, but it would take me an entire week to cover this first lesson, and I just don't have that kind of time. So and that is a really interesting question to bring up, Pat, that leads to the idea of, it's one of the tougher things we have to balance, and that is covering everything we have been told we're supposed to cover, or feel ethically we are supposed to cover. That's a better way to put it. Nobody's telling us what to do. Yet knowing that what would really truly be the best for each student would be to dig a lot deeper, you know, like you get to in college. So it's a tough balance. But yeah, we're guided by curriculum companies that help us along the way.
Can I just add something to that? So when you look at a textbook, and if you remember learning from a textbook when you were in college or high school or whatever, you always get most of the way through the textbook, and then that stuff at the end, you know, the teachers never get to, and it's kind of, I mean, obviously you think you need to know it because it's in the textbook, but the teachers don't seem to care. And I find that some of the most interesting stuff is in that back of the textbook. Yeah, so while we are guided by the textbook, I base importance on what I feel like your kids are going to be served by in their future learning and in their life as a whole. I'm going to do a big unit on consumer math with your kids because that's real life math, and I think that's just as important as long division.
Well, in science, for instance, our junk mail project, that's an integrated math and science project. They will spend some time in Elizabeth's class, but I chose the project because I felt like it did have really good math concepts for computation. It's computing how many pieces of paper come from one tree, how many trees did it take to make the mail that we collected, because we weighed every piece of mail that comes in, so measurement skills, plus multiplication, proportions, all of that. And rather than just sending the kids to her for the computation part, I've chosen to keep them with me, so I want to see how fluid they are in other areas with that skill. I want them to pick up the skills that they have mastered in Elizabeth's class and use them in my class. And I want to be able to assess that, and I want to look at it and say, can you take this out of context and still consider it a skill? And so we try to integrate some of these things together, and I spoke of that last night for Erica's class. With her class, we do bar graphs and we collect data, and she really doesn't have as much time as she would like to spend on displaying information and data. And so it's really easy for me to pick up a lesson that does integrate some of those skills, and not to have these teachers feel like that the weight of the world is on their shoulders in that subject area. Because I can tell you, and Jackie can tell you too, after years and years of teaching, you can get overwhelmed with the standards that keep changing. And the amount of material, really what I've been able to navigate over the years is that the standards haven't changed so much. The language within the standards has changed to be very, very particular in how you present it and at what time frame. And all of that is just kind of rewrite over and over the same material. And it's difficult to sift through that, especially for some of our younger teachers who look at those standards and go, it would take me 3 years to get through this 6 months of standards that are laid out in front of me. Well, you have to pick and choose what is most practical, most applicable, and to me, what transfers across subject areas. can your kids come to my science class and do computational math? Well, yeah, because I'm asking them to. And if they can't, we know there's a red flag. We see it. I can go to Elizabeth and say, is this kid struggling with just basic probability or fractions or something? And she can say, yeah. And, I mean, that's the beauty of choosing the parts of the curriculum that we believe are the most important rather than having a mandated set of standards coming from the state. And for me, I use national science standards. I think they're more applicable to your children and they build fluency even better than our Colorado standards. And I'm not suggesting that Colorado standards aren't great standards, but within science, there's a lot of science teachers across the state of Colorado that say our Colorado standards are very ambiguous and very difficult to discern, and especially at the K through 8 level. So that's part of our job, is researching what standards are the most applicable to your kids, and it's a tough job, and it's a continuing job, year after year, especially with the kids that we've had since year 1. I don't like repeating a lot. I like to hit those subjects over and over again through a fluid project, but you do have to, like she was talking about, you do have to make a spiral, make sure that you're continuing to practice those skills that you honed before and not just leave them behind, that they're constantly used. And so hopefully that answers your question outside of even just math. I mean, that's definitely how I work my curriculum.
Well, and it's cool too, because a couple of my lessons, I went to Liz and I was like, okay, well, with the Great Depression, how can we tie in math? Can we look at the percentage of what prices were versus then? Or in her projects, she's having the kids write stuff, and so it's just neat that we are always integrating each other's work throughout to strengthen all those different points.
And for science, if you have a junior high level kid, this is the first time in their life at a junior high level in a public school situation where they would have a dedicated science class. In the K through 5 realm, you get that within your general education day, and you really don't get as much time spent on scientific concepts as you would probably like for your children. So within us, we really do have a lot more science concepts, but for me, I don't feel like taking equal time away from writing and math, so I make sure that those things are in my class. They have to write in my class, and they have to write competently with punctuation and spelling and grammar and those things, and they have to be able to do those math skills, because that's part of their grade in my class even. So if that helps to kind of make you feel better about where they're using their skills and how they're doing it.
There is no school on the planet that could, I read a statistic in a book that I think we cover, I'm not even going to say the statistic, but it was because I don't remember it, but it was a significantly small percentage of the material that we're supposed to cover each year in a classroom gets covered. So again, that balance, the teacher in a traditional setting has to just race right through, and I have plenty of conversations and know that that's what's going on out there in the world. And it's one of the really big problems going on right now in education, is trying to pack all of that in, and it really, actually Stacy, you said it best yesterday, and actually maybe I wrote it down. She said that in Orsch, our goal is not to be mediocre across the board. And I think that's unfortunately what a lot of education is hitting right now, trying to hit all those things in the textbook. I don't mean to start a philosophical conversation. But it's a tough balance, and a lot of, I think, what education should be doing is really going with that gut instead. What are kids really going to need? Because I can't hit 100 things this year. It's just not possible. So I'm going to choose 20 of the most valuable. All right, next question, moving on.
Let's go.
I don't have a question, but I bring something up that was discussed last night because I thought it was so good. There was a question last night, some of you will have to sit through this answer again with those of you who weren't here, regarding parents helping at home with concepts and whether or not they run the risk of undoing some learning by taking a different approach, and then that sort of fed into multi-approaches for a single concept.
I like that question as well. I
You just want to address that again, perhaps?
Yeah. If you are ever helping your child with math, which we want to say homework is optional here, Often they'll bring something home to get it finished, or a lot of your children ask for homework. And with math, at least, I won't speak for Jordan and Stacy, but I have a feeling they'll have similar answers. With math, if you understand the concepts, teach your kid any way you want, because that just brings another way to do it to the table. And like I was saying before, Ruby Houghton comes in and teaches me a new way to multiply nines, and it's, I can share that with everybody, and we love that. And if you do confuse them, that's okay, because they're going to come back in the next day and I'll unconfuse them, hopefully. So if doing schoolwork is part of your home life, which it definitely doesn't have to be, I just think it's wonderful for them to get the extra practice and the other perspectives of it. So don't worry about that at all. You are, or you guys want to speak to that?
I think it probably falls mostly in the math realm, just
Yeah.
because I've helped my own child at home, and he'll say, well, it's not called borrowing, it's called regrouping, and I'm like, whatever it is, this is how I do it, and I don't know how to teach you any other way than what I do, and that's great. And last night's question was, we don't want to undo the work that your teachers have been doing, and I second that. I mean, I have concerns about that as a parent myself at home with my own kid, but we all learn differently, and one thing that I have helped kids in math during, your kids have academic options periods throughout their week in which they have an unstructured academic time where they can prioritize what they need to work on the most for different classes. And so I have a group of kids in my room that I help prioritize what's going on in their lives, because they're not great at it by themselves yet. They'll get there, but there are kids that can tend to place a more fun thing above the thing that needs to be turned in first. So they join me for those academic options times, and I help prioritize, and I'm also there help tutoring as they go along. If something stumps them quickly and I can answer that question, great. If not, I send them to Elizabeth. But I've even sat down with somebody and go, well, this is the way I do it. That's not the way Miss Elizabeth taught me. And opened their eyes even. One particular child was like, that makes more sense to me the way you do it than the way Miss Elizabeth does it. And I'm like, well, you can share that with her gently. In a really nice way. But Elizabeth has also come to me at certain times and said, please don't reroute a kid. If they have a question about this particular assignment, tell them to come see me. And I'm like, you got it. So we can communicate that way beautifully, and if there's a specific way that we would like for your child to learn something, I would imagine that Elizabeth would let you know that, but in reality, any help is good help. Don't let it frustrate you. If your kids are going, that's not the way we do it at school, I told my kids the other day, well, it still can get done. This is the way I do it, and if you want to do it differently, you got to teach me that way. And sometimes them teaching me is actually a really effective tool to get through it themselves. So
I think the best rule of thumb is there are probably 10 to 15 different ways to learn every concept. So tell them your way, and show them that that's the way you think. I think the more they think about the world from multiple perspectives, the better, including skills and knowledge from school.
And if you guys ever are stuck with math at home, I wrote a couple websites on the board that are amazing resources. IXL is something that all of your children have accounts in, and if you ever feel like they need to be doing something productive, or they feel like they want to practice math, that's an amazing website. And Khan Academy has a lesson on literally every math topic I have ever thought of, at least, and I'm sure many more. So those are awesome resources.
Because homework is optional largely, and because you don't do a lot of traditional testing or tests during classwork, as our kids are now getting to that older age, how will they be prepared to take tests, especially time tests and things like that? Because whether we agree with them or not, that's the reality of either high school or college at some point. How will they be ready for those types of things, homework and testing?
I'll speak to the homework one first, because I'm actually about to hit that. Sam's going to high school next year, and so we're having lots of conversations. He sure has had a lovely 4 years of having a good after-school life and discovering what he loves to do at home. He's quite an artist and a musician, and I'm so grateful as a parent that we weren't doing homework every evening. don't think specifically on the homework side of things, and I would love it if he would challenge me on this. If you have a different perspective, please do. But I don't think homework itself is a skill, nor is using your time after school or after you clock out or after you come home from work doing something required for your job or for school. I don't think that's a positive thing in one's life. He will have to get used to it next year. It's going to happen. It's going to come home, and we'll get through it the best we can. He'll have to build new habits and build new skills, but I don't think that he needed to be prepared for that personally. Does that make sense?
I can add something to that because Hayden is going part-time at the high school, and there's different reasons for him going part-time and then part-time here, but I have to say that a lot of the skills that my kids have learned, and I know everybody's kids are different, but a lot of the skills that my kids have learned, and I know a couple of these teachers are like, wish he'd bring it back and use it here, but he has been great about getting his stuff done, and Grace, who's not here this year, she decided to go back to the middle school. She's done pretty well going back over there. And she has homework. She's a little bit more disciplined than Hayden is. Every kid's a little bit different. But because I was afraid of that. I was just like, oh my gosh, this is... They'll both be just right back here. And I asked Jackie, is she ready for this? Not just the social part. Is she ready to do this? And, Jackie was pretty confident about it. And it's been good. So, everybody's going to be a little different. But they learn a lot of skills here. Even though they have to have a lot of reinforcement, they do learn a lot about time management and trying to set those priorities and, good work ethics.
That's a huge piece of the program. So, I don't want to get too off track, but as far as if homework skills are about time management, they're learning time management here like no other place because they've got that independence and that freedom to choose what to do when sometimes.
And we let them fail at that occasionally.
Yeah.
We had that conversation last night. Do you let our kids fail? Well, yeah. If you make a bad choice and you don't manage your time wisely, it's not my job to badger you. My job is to point out the choices that you have along the way. And when you make a bad one, especially a time management one, it's not my job to say, it's okay. It'll be fine. My job is to say that was a poor choice. Here's a new set of choices. You are behind on this. Now this becomes priority number one. Everything else is behind that. Let's get this done and feel good about it. And you do have to push them through that. But there's a learning curve in that. And I've watched it. I've watched it in several kids. If you don't mind, Jen, Amber was, when she came to us, not a disciplined student in that way. She didn't want to assert her choices as her own. And I've seen a huge shift in her over the years, and she is so dependable and so responsible and a very good manager of her time. And when she's not a good manager of her time, you don't even have to think about it. She comes to you with huge tears in her eyes. I didn't do what I was supposed to. And now I'm really weak. And so you talk her through it, and you tell her it's not the end of the world, that she can take it home if she didn't use her time wisely. That's one of the few times if you've ever gotten work home for me, it's because I've told your kid, you didn't choose to spend your time on, wisely. I think this now falls on your shoulders. It needs to be. That's not homework, that's a choice. So like Jackie was saying, and I would reiterate it too, homework is not a skill that you hone. Homework is more assignments that you have to manage outside of school with the proper time management, and it falls on parents a lot. And you have to fight with your kids sometimes, but really it's about their habits, their work habits. And I think here we hone that more on a day-to-day basis than in a very structured environment where you say 20 minutes, get it done, and then you move on. And if it's not done, the grade reflects that. Do you know what I mean? And it's a framework that's very, very controlled versus we do let them slip up and figure out that was a bad choice and I need to work harder, or I got stuck and didn't ask for help. That one happens a lot, especially new Orschers that come through the door. you know, they're buzzing along, and if there's not somebody there going, you know, you need to sit down, you need to pay attention, this is what you need to be doing right now, then they're gonna slip up. And we let them do that. I fully let them do that to a point, because you have to allow them the chance to recognize that was my choice, it was a bad one, and I'm not getting anywhere, and this really stinks. Because my teachers aren't gonna trust me, and I'm not getting my work done, and everybody else around me is, and so, okay, I gotta make a different choice. Some of them, that curve is really short, and some of them it takes a couple of months. As some of you know, because some of you have kids that have joined us mid-year or are new, and there is a learning curve, and that's part of the work ethic and work habits that we very much value, and I think translates into homework, and for that matter, testing. So I'll let you talk
Yeah,
about
and I
testing.
really want to hit that one. That is such a big question. It's such an important question. I would actually absolutely love it if somebody landed from the sky and said, every single one of your kids has to take this test. I would be ecstatic, because I think our kids are smart enough to know how to fill in a bubble and fill in a blank. That would not faze them in the least. And I think that their day-to-day lives are so full of critical thinking, really looking for answers, digging deep, and wanting that solution, that they would be excited to show what they know. They would be excited to get down and dirty on that test and prove their knowledge. And from the kids we've seen going back in, they've been fine, you know, and then there are pieces of test taking that, you know, there are test taking strategies kids can learn, and we can throw those at them. I'm going to have Emma take a test taking skills class before she goes into the SAT. You know, I guess the bottom line is, I'm not saying what I really want to say. It's not coming out well. The depth of thinking and learning that our students are getting will definitely show up as their lives are tested. That's my true feeling about it. I'm not at all worried that they're not used to timed tests. I think that those do more damage than anything. I think that the confidence that they get in this building and the confidence they get in class will serve them better than somebody harping on them to see what they know, see what they know, see what they know. And that those skills will come in life.
I just want to add on to that. In my class, at least, your kids do get a little bit of time testing as an option, and a lot of them choose it. A lot of your kids really like it when it's not something that's stressful, and Justin is a kid who really does like it. So that stuff, I agree with Jackie, that stuff will come, and I think the best part about our program is your kids don't fear tests. They don't fear assessments, and that's something that a lot of kids really struggle with.
Can I add on to that? And part of mine comes from the perspective of watching Emma go through this transition. In my mind, test taking, aside from the actual knowledge basis necessary for the test taking is about confidence. Because if you go into a testing situation and you aren't confident, it doesn't matter what your body of knowledge is. You aren't going to be able to put it down. So if you spend the years prior to the test building confidence, you really are building that skill that's necessary for the test taking. If, on the other hand, you spend those years being forced to take tests in situations that you don't like, you actually run the risk of degrading confidence in these years. And then you come out and you're not a good test taker because you believe you're not a good test taker, and you're not confident about the testing. Whereas if you come out of these years confident and with a good body of knowledge, you're going to be a pretty good test taker. Now, I've seen that in Emma. In Emma's transition from Orsch into high school, she enjoys homework. she sometimes can't wait to get up to her desk and start doing homework. And I'm downstairs kind of scratching my head going, wow, that's interesting. But she loves doing it. And then when she gets the chance to show what she knows on a test, she's confident she can. And she's a very good test taker. And she didn't, during these years, she didn't, traditionally practice that skill. Instead, she built supporting skills that have translated into good test taking.
Chris and I have had that same, I guess that same fear, if you will. It took us a little longer to embrace that. We really didn't embrace it until probably a month ago. We were still worried about it. And, Chris's biggest thing was, what if we are, breeding kids who are fearful of taking tests, and then we throw them into that and they panic. And we finally kind of shifted our paradigm a little bit to realize that just what he had said, that if our kids are confident students and confident learners, and they feel like they know the information, a test to them, because we haven't put this stigma on what a test is, and we haven't put this pressure behind it, to them it's going to be no different than doing a worksheet about a review of what they've learned. And if we, as parents, stop making our kids afraid of tests and making the standard of a test is a really big deal and you have to do really well and you need to study and make it this huge thing, then we probably create that mess more than we need to, because that's how we were raised and that's the environment in which we grew up in. So we as parents kind of had to shift our paradigm and learn from our kids that this is the environment in which we do best, and we are completely confident in what we know. We're confident in our teachers that they are making sure we understand the concepts before they move on. We know we can ask for help if we don't understand it. So if you were to give them a worksheet that was a test by all of our standards, I'm pretty confident that they wouldn't think anything about it because we didn't label it as a test.
I think they'd enjoy it even if we did call it a test.
Right. Because
Yeah.
they haven't had that schooling of, okay, everybody have a good breakfast. We're going to sit here for 4 hours, no talking. If you finish early, put your head down on the desk, sit still, don't rustle around, number 2 pencil, fill the circle in completely. We haven't made a big deal about it.
And not getting too far into a philosophical debate, I mean, all of your kids are here because you chose them to be here. Jackie and I have had long discussions. A test is not who your kid is. It's a snapshot, obviously, and yes, that snapshot's important to the state of Colorado and to the SAT and the ACT and the colleges. I totally understand the importance of that. I would like, however, to invite you to fight against a singular assessment for your child from this day forward. I would like for you to fight on behalf of every child to be assessed in multiple ways. It is possible within this district, within any district in the United States of America, for you as parents to say that you would like your child to be evaluated on more than one test. And it's okay to say that you're afraid that that one test might not show how smart and how wonderful your child is. It is okay for you to feel fear that they may not do well on a test. It is also, in my opinion, not ever going to change unless we as parents commit to changing our paradigms and our thinking that this is the way we have to respond to testing. And we have to say that that one test is what our kid is capable of in that school environment. It's not. Your kids are wonderfully capable of developing a multitude of products to show me what they know. I don't test that way. I don't test your kids in science that way. I want them to succeed not because I think they're happy in my class or that they were well behaved. I actually want them to know what they're doing. And if you have teachers that are doing that for your children, the assessment is secondary. We look at products, we talk to them, we let them talk to one another, we let them compete against each other. One of the favorite things that my kids do, and I don't let them do it very often because we have a lot of work to do, is to play a game about what do you know about what we've studied. And they get into it, and they'll do it quicker than you can imagine. I mean, they can't get their hands on the bell fast enough or on the ruler or whatever it is. Those are tests. And as parents, you can say, I don't want my child to be evaluated by one single test or single number. Now, to get into college, I realize that that's out of your control. Like Ashley, all I can say is I'm not worried. We don't give them anxiety about tests. They can walk in, sit down, take a test, and it might be a decent measure of who they are. And I mean, my SAT scores don't reflect who I am any more today than they did back then. And if I took the SAT again today, I'd probably make about the same score, to be honest with you, because that's just one singular assessment. So realize that what we are doing every day is difficult to understand and recognize because it is so different and it is new within that institution of the way we grew up learning or the choices that we were given. But I still push for that. I push for these kids to always have choices, not in only how they learn, but in how they're assessed as well. That's not an unreachable goal for any school district, for any state, for any country, to say that no child will be evaluated based on one test score. So,
And it's really an interesting national conversation going on right now. Hi, come in. Okay. It's an archaic way to look at knowledge. The tests are. I fully believe and I have a dream that someday we will look back on that era of testing and be embarrassed that we put our generations through this. And successful countries around the world are doing just that. We have models to follow. I cannot believe that the United States is this far behind. I am disgusted, downright disgusted about it. It is the reality that we live within. We have a daughter headed to college in 3 years. We have conversations all the time that she will get a 4.0, and it is important, and she will score well on those tests because that's her reality, and we know that's a piece of this. Sam's headed there too, so it's a slow bridge, but at the same time, at this level for your children, we want to give them way more than that. And they'll be fine. Especially yours.
Don't hold anything back.
And we are a part of that. We are truly, and that's the most exciting piece to me, and it's what that email is about. We are truly a grassroots effort and lab, really, to start this conversation. 4 years into successful practices that take us in a whole new direction in this country, but it's going to be a really, really long road. So thanks for being a part of it.
Something that was super cool to me yesterday that Stacy said was we are providing our students the opportunity to learn their strengths and their passions, and then when they go to college, they're not going to waste a year, 2 years, 3 years trying to figure out what they want to do with their lives. They're going to go in and be like, you know what? I am awesome at science, and I actually love the biology aspect. And that, to me, was like, that is exactly what we're doing, and I love that idea.
I get questions a lot about why do you pay money to send your kids to school when you can do it for free? I'm sure you have had questions like that, especially in the elementary school years. It's my personal philosophy that that's an investment much like college. And to be honest, I know how I felt by the time I got to high school. I didn't really love learning anymore. I wasn't curious, like I mentioned earlier. I knew the program and I knew what was expected of me, and I showed up and I did my job. But I didn't know what I was good at, really. And so when I went to college, I went to study journalism because I knew I was a good writer. I got really great marks in writing, but I really loved science. I just didn't know what you did with it. I didn't know what you could do with it. So after 2 years studying journalism, I said, this isn't what I want to do. And I was 4.0, had a scholarship and everything, and I turned around and said, I'm going to be a botanist. And that's what I did. So I want my kids and yours to know themselves very well and to still love learning. And that's my investment. It's not only my investment when I pay my tuition just like you do, but it's also my investment when I come in the door to teach your kids. Because if they go to high school, whether it's public school or somewhere else, whatever it is, they will know their strengths and their weaknesses, much like you saw in their report cards. I mean, I got my kids' report cards and I was like, you got them. You know their strengths and their weaknesses really well, just like I do. And that's what we're here for, is to help them explore those things and make sure they're competent in those areas that they're weak in, competent and capable and confident that they can do those skills even if they're not their most favorite or they're not best at them. But even the bigger picture is to find out what they love and what they're really good at and encourage that and let that grow. And those things will grow exponentially greater than some of these other things. And we'll push those things along for your kids. The things that they don't love. We will make them competent in those things. But the true things that they really thrive to learn more about, they have the opportunity to. And I hope that when they go to high school and college, they do know themselves better, and that's the investment that you make. Bob, did you have something?
Yeah, it's just sort of interesting. She has an older brother who's 46, who's a teacher, 3rd grade, bilingual. And, you know, I've told him all about the school, but, you know, he's still, and I mean, he's a great teacher, and the kids are very lucky to have him, and, you know, he's open to all these new ways of going, but when I hear them on the phone, boy, he's always checking her out. You know, what are you reading? What's the name of the book? I mean, he's always testing her to see, you know, if this kid's coming out, you know, the way, you know, he thinks she should. And it's really an interesting thing to watch because the dynamics of it are exactly what all you are doing here, asking this question. And I just sort of sit there with a big smile. And then Sophie will, you know, they'll hang up. She'll say, "Can you believe those questions he's asking?" So, you know, I see it, and, you know, he's coming around. He's coming around. And also, his wife is, you know, she's a teacher, and she's the head of a whole program over in Carbondale. And, you know, education is her life. And it's all really interesting. I just figured it's worth sharing with you because I deal with it every day. And I just smile and I try and shut up because I get in trouble. Yeah, sure.
And then I'll end that with one more personal thing that's going on in our household right now, and that is, so we've got Emma and headed into ACTs and SATs and all of those things. She's currently taking Algebra 2. She may hit 1 or 2 algebra questions in her life as theater major. Or she may choose to go into engineering. She's going to do one of the two. But Ashley and I have had multiple conversations about the fact that we really wish she were spending an entire year on statistics and how to look at data and how to think about the world. And, you know, those are, and we watched this amazing TED Talk on the fact that, and that's where this conversation started, the fact that really math in the high school grades should be about that because we need thinkers out there. We don't necessarily, Emma's on her, she was laughing yesterday, on her 9th day of learning how to find the square of the problem. She came home with 40 problems the other night, and I don't mean to bash it at all, but she's frustrated too because she doesn't feel that the material is necessarily relevant. We step back and say, well, why do we keep her in Algebra 2? And truly the reason that she's in Algebra 2 is because there will be 10 to 15 of those questions on the SAT. I am putting my daughter through that. We are putting our kid through that because that's what she needs for college entrance.
Well, that's what the system's doing.
Right, but we're going along with it because those 15 questions are going to end up on the test. And that strikes deeply, and it's this irony inside, and it's actually also kind of a fun position to find myself in because I know she's capable and it fires me up and all these other pieces. But just think about that. Think about that as a big philosophical conversation to be had. Yes.
I'm sorry, Patrick, to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot here because I happen to know he's a college professor at Western. And, you know, my daughter's a sophomore and will hopefully, I think her goal is to finish school here, that she'll graduate, whatever that looks like, hopefully in 3 more years here at Orsch. The public school was not a success for her. The testing was horrible because that's not her thing. Socially, she does much better in a smaller setting where she's got that personalized attention So when she finishes with Orsch, she'll end up with something. I'm assuming when a college says, I need your transcript, there will be something that Orsch will be able to share with them. What do you think Western's going to look at that? How will they take that? What's your...
Yeah, I probably can't answer it very well because that's something that the registrar and all those kinds of people deal with. But yeah, I really don't know what, I mean, we have to figure out where to place people, that's the system, I guess, that they have.
There will be a test, in other words, most
Yeah.
likely.
And the SATs and stuff like that are used to decide which math you're in. So probably what she would end up doing is you can take all these little tests as you get in to see where you fit, like what English level should you start in? Can you go right into the freshman English, or do you go into the pre-freshman English, and same with math. And those are the two main skills. Otherwise, I mean, you can just start taking courses in whatever field she's interested in.
She'll have an accredited high school diploma.
She'll have credits through Conlara. She's a Conlara student. And you're familiar with that.
Yeah.
We, to speak to that,
Sorry, I didn't mean to...
that's okay. So this is the first year we've taken on high schoolers. We have 3 official high schoolers, and we are partnering with a school in Ann Arbor, Michigan, who is so closely aligned with our philosophy. Ashley and actually our whole family got the chance to tour it this summer, and they are working with us to offer accredited credits for what Erica's doing now. Now Erica, if you don't mind if I
No,
speak
not sure.
about her, she is, we've been flexibly designing her classes all year just to keep things going that she enjoys and elements of her life where she will flourish. So we're inventing her classes. It's not classic U.S. history or literature and language arts skills or any of that. In fact, one of Erica's classes that we just came up with a couple weeks ago is self-discovery. And she's really into it. And she came up with a project on her own. Did she tell you about that? The collage she wants to do. And so we're able to craft her class and her entire school year based on the things that she needs in particular. And that's Conlara's whole philosophy as well, is that especially once you get to high school, you need to be carving your own path. Whether or not a college will appreciate that, if she goes into creative writing, absolutely, she's going to blow them away. For those essential skills and things, she'll get through it like all the other kids do.
Patrick, do you know how they handle like homeschool and such?
I don't.
She had the option of taking her GED, and colleges are much more open to that now.
Are they now? Good. I was hoping there was a shift towards more of that.
Colleges are really open to homeschools now. I've looked into some of those articles, and that's a beautiful transition happening. And it's because they're getting kids who are confident thinkers from homeschool and Orschers.
And they weight the SAT, ACT scores. I have a friend who has 2 homeschoolers that both graduated and went into college, and the GED was their prime measurement tool, and then, of course, what supported that was they had both SAT and ACT scores. It was just kind of like that's what this particular college required of them, is both test scores coming from homeschoolers with the GED.
She'll have an accredited diploma though, so she won't have to
Yeah.
get her GED.
Right,
She
right.
can just do the test.
She probably will have to take an ACT or SAT.
Definitely.
If she wants to go that way.
Some schools don't require it though.
Really?
Yeah. I think I looked at a few. I didn't apply. I didn't choose those ones, but I mean, there is a shift in, at least last time I looked, which was a lot of years ago, but even then there's, they call them sort of progressive schools, but there are schools that realize that the SAT and ACT is not a measure of how successful a student will be in college. It's a tool, and sometimes it is a measure, but it's not always, and there's a lot of smaller schools that realize that.
It's good.
kids leaving Orsch. I have had a few conversations with kids this year who say, I think I'm ready to go back to the public school. And I just want you to know that personally, that thrills me. Huh, Madeline? Madeline's alumni. That thrills me deeply because it means that they have a confidence and a desire for new experiences, and they feel safe in the world, and they feel capable. So please, if your children are saying that to you, please listen to them. They know deeply that they're ready, and we would be happy to send them off and in a capable fashion. Also, let us know so we can squeeze all those benchmarks in so they're ready for September. As soon as you possibly know, let us know, because we can do that. We can throw those benchmarky, easy to get to, prepare them and get them ready. Madeline, would you like to speak?
I found it a really easy transition back in. I still knew some people, so that helped, but I was a lot more confident. And
You are.
I knew how to find out stuff for myself too, and that really helped. So I don't think it's that hard going back in.
Thanks, Madeline. Thank you. We're proud of you.
And you helped a lot with that, Jordan.
Other questions? Are your kids happy?
I want to make a comment, because that's a perfect question right now. Shelby went to Crestview Community School, Gaines Community School, Christian school over in Buena Vista. I have never seen her as happy as she is, and as enthusiastic as she is. And Stacy, you said, do we want to know what you're doing? No, I don't. Whatever you're doing, please don't change it.
Thank you.
It's incredible to me, what I see.
That means a lot to all of us, and we need to hear it regularly, because we work hard.
Let's put them on a schedule. You gotta tell us we're doing wrong, but everybody's on it for a moment to tell us how awesome
Even
we
if you
are.
don't want to know what we're doing, we still like to hear about what your kids say about us when they get home. So
Thanks for that, John,
That's
because
awesome.
she's new, and it's really important to us to have the transitional kids feel very quickly how much we value them and how important they are in our lives. And Shelby, if you don't mind me saying, was hesitant at first. She really wasn't sure if it was different. You know, I mean, sometimes we tell our kids things are going to be different and they aren't different. I mean, and we try our best. And Shelby trusts us a lot now, and she is blossoming in my eyes, in my class, and I can't speak for the other teachers, but I say in our community, she's a solid community citizen very quickly. And so thanks for sharing her with us.
She's naturally independent, and I think that that's part of what thrills her, that she's come to a place where she can realize that natural capability to be independent and self-driven, and yeah. So.
Well, and I can send that John too. I mean, Joseph is happy and quick to get ready and doesn't want to miss school even if it's for a hockey tournament, and they're taking the bus now, the RTA
I
bus down.
love hearing
And
that.
Oh,
it's great. That's so good.
Oh.
Yeah. So they all get on the bus, the 5 of them, and see South Durham. It's like drive down, looking at us.
They are so proud that they have that independence, that each one of them has shared that with me this week. And I just would like to say wonderful, because you truly do trust them, and they feel it, and they know it, and they walk tall. You know what I'm saying? And that's a good choice to try to reduce the stress in your lives, because it is a chore to drive back and forth, and I know how much more of a burden that is. And I respect the heck out of that. I mean, they are old enough, and it is tough to leave them at the bus stop, whether it's a school bus stop or an RTA bus stop. So they love it. They are thrilled to tell us all about it. So thank you, because it was cool to hear.
And I have to say, last year, before we came, when Joseph was in the Crestview school, it was a battle every day to get him to go. And even when he picked him up, it was like, oh, I hate it, it's terrible. Here, it's like, easy
Can't wait
as
for the
peasy.
next day. Awesome.
to that because you guys aren't here all day, every day, and when you do come, you know, it's morning or lunchtime or after school, and that's when everybody's, you know, going every which way. But I think that there's one thing more than anything else that makes children unhappy, and that is boredom. And if kids around here were just allowed to do whatever they wanted, and you know, we've got the freedom and we've got the choice, but I fear sometimes in my quiet moments, I fear that parents think that translates into chaos or doing whatever they want. But if that were the case, your children wouldn't be happy. Bored children are frustrated, and bored children have very little happiness flooding through them. So, just so you know, that I think the fact that they're happy is evidence of how much they're getting to do.
And Joseph pushes Orsch all the time. He's always, oh, Connor Orsching, he should be going to Orsch. You know, if Morgan's getting all A pluses on her report cards, she should go to Orsch because those classes are too easy for her and she can be learning more.
You know, a commercial.
Sam, get Joseph on.
TV. He's a big advocate, and he gets asked a lot, why do you go there? And you know, Crestview School is such a good school. I don't know why your mom drives you to Gunnison. And you know, I don't know what he says. He seems to be handling it okay though. So, have you?
What'd you say, Joe?
Sure.
Oh, he told the kids the other day that I got mad because the art room is a cart with 4 wheels on it.
Oh, that's
Wow. The
John,
argument was a part of
Joseph
it.
must have told one of the kids. Well, my dad was mad because the art room's only a cart at the community school.
And I have to say, this has been a great experience for Prairie too. Starting out in private school and going to public school and being homeschooled and coming here has been, especially socially, a really, really good experience for her.
She's been a fun one to watch develop socially. It's been so cool to see her, you know, go from friend to friend, and now she just has this big group of friends.
Yeah.
Just really, really cool. Super diverse.
She needs to get a little bit more into the English, but
Secondary.
it's like math and science. I just want to do math and science all day.
Other questions, comments? Want to go home early? I'm sorry.
When you have a happy kid, and you had an unhappy kid, I'm fearful of sending him back to the unhappy place. And that's my struggle right now as Josh is in 8th grade. I don't want to send him to high school. I think he might want to go, but I'm scared to death of putting him back there because he was miserable. So that's where, as a parent, that's not
But Tracy,
something I'm happy about this year.
Josh has grown so much. He used to just be kind of meek and hidden, and now he's a leader in his classes, and if he's ready for high school, he really will be, because he is really blossomed, and that's awesome.
And Sam and Josh could do homework together?
Josh, there's, no one knows how bad my life was when there was homework. I can't. I mean, maybe that sounds selfish, but just, and I've read a lot of stuff about homework, and it's not, you know, I don't believe in it, but just to throw him back into that is where I'm scared. I don't want him to lose the confidence and happiness that he has. He never complains about going to school, and where we were at when he was in 6th grade was a whole different place, and I don't want it. I'm afraid to throw him back in there. It's like just putting him back into a harsh environment when he's been in a really happy place. That's what I'm scared of, but
I guess we'll have to keep the doors open, Stace.
I think as parents in this valley though, when you guys are in the community and you run into school board members, you need to say something to them. Because I've called a couple of them out and I said, where's our survey? You're not getting our money anymore. Why aren't you concerned that we're not in that system anymore?
Exactly. They're not concerned at all.
Well,
You don't get a letter, you don't get anything
nothing,
when you take
nothing,
your kids out of school.
absolutely nothing. And it's sad. I mean, it really, really is. Why do you live here? You don't live here because you have to. You live here because you want to. And so if you get enough of us upset parents, maybe pushing a little bit here and there, maybe some changes might start happening. One of them, John Nelson, is resigning. Let's, you know, push a little bit. Maybe somebody gets in there that actually cares.
Well, there's some apathy that's out there. I've worked with the school board with the alternative school, and I was secretary of the PTA. I worked with Ashley on gifted and talented stuff one year. I mean, nothing will change because at this point in time, there has to be something alarming, and not so much anger and resentment and fear, but just changes that come. And I would say one of the things that you as parents can do is talk to people that you think are qualified to run for school board. There has not been a school board election in this county in 12 years. I find that kind of apathy really disturbing. It doesn't mean that the people that are serving now are not qualified. I don't mean to implicate that at all. They're wonderful people. It's a volunteer position. It takes a lot of time and energy. Much like teaching, almost volunteer time. But I would say, you know, out in the community, rather than, we've never wanted to be divisive. We don't advertise our services to the community. We do support the public school system tremendously. I support every child in that system. I support every teacher in that system. Well, most of them. I would just like to say that as a proactive measure for you all and the people that you know, when you're asked, why do you send your kids to Orsch, or what is it about Orsch that you choose over this? I mean, it doesn't have to be a personal discussion of the bad things that have happened to your kids or your ideals. It could be a discussion about, well, we really need some leadership in that school district, and really, do you know anybody that might want to step up and take a board position? Business owners, retired people. I just ask that of you because it's been a challenge over the years for the district itself to find a good vision for the school. And it's not to say that people haven't poured their hearts and souls into it and that the board members that are there aren't really trying to hone in on that, but it is dysfunctional at times. And it would be really lovely to see people compete for those spots on the board because they really truly have a vision that supports kids. So take that angle into the community maybe, and instead of it being just Orsch versus public school or just the shortcomings of institutional education, it's our community, it's your community, it's your children, and it's your voice. So maybe speak in that direction.
And John, I do want to say that we have been open to discussions with RE1J from the very, very beginning, and it was my hope that this program could start there, and I tried as hard as I could. But I want to say that we have worked extremely hard to keep the relationship positive, and that conversations are ongoing, and I see a glimmer of hope.
Especially in the high school. They have some creative thinkers in the high school.
And there's a lot of awesome teachers in this valley. I mean, whether they graduate from Western, whether they come here, whatever, there is a lot of awesome teachers in Gunston schools. That's, I mean, no doubt about it.
And a lot of it is mandated, and that's the unfortunate
And the
part.
teachers are frustrated. If you talk to a teacher off of out of the
That's why I look back, and as devastated as I was when I had to get in my little lifeboat and go the other direction and say goodbye to that ship in 2008, I am... In hindsight, either one.
Yes.
In hindsight, I am really grateful that I was forced to go on my own because we got to make our own decisions. Nobody mandated anything. We got to choose the route and the direction and the materials and the people, and I think we have gotten miles and miles further than we would have had I been under those mandates. And we actually, we absolutely would have. So, in hindsight, as tired as I am, I'm thrilled that it went the way it went.
Can I tell you a story?
Sure.
Okay, Jackie.
Wait, are you okay hearing swear words?
No, I'll be good. Jackie and I had an appointment to talk about Sophie coming to the school, and actually, I think other than your kids, Sophie was probably the first kid on board. So anyway, we had a meeting, she was gonna meet at my house at 4:30. And I didn't know Jackie very well, I just knew who she was, I've been around her from time, and she came in the house and she looked freaked out. And I asked her, so, you know, what's happening? Well, I just came out of the superintendent's office, and he told me that it's not gonna work, like right then. And I can't believe it, and I said, but I'm out of here. And 10 minutes later, she came in the door, and so I watched it.
You were
Right
the
there.
first human I contacted.
And you know, and I remember my response to her was, I was less likely to send my kid to your school if it was under that roof. Okay. But I think, you know, I think it's just where it was all at. And there you are.
I really, really do have hope. I have a list of things right in front of me to keep reminding me, and it's, what's driving me right now is in 50 years, where will we be? And I want to be a part of that change, and we are a part of that change, and I've got to live on hope. Absolutely have to. So, thanks for that piece of the trust you've given us and allowing us to carve this path.
I don't say anything. Bad man. So I would like to say that my kids are really happy here, and they enjoy what they are learning, and they enjoy each class, and they cannot wait to get to school every day. So I want to thank you guys.
Thank you. And we can't thank you enough for your children. You know, they've added so much to every single child's lives here. So thank you.
Thanks for sharing them with us.
You can hold a complete conversation with your children now, all 5 of them.
It's incredible.
I don't even stumble. I just have a completely English conversation with each of them, and they understand. And when they don't, they say, what's that one? I don't understand. So, it is incredible to see that, and we're really excited about their progress. Thank you.
And your kids, I would have to say the Barumbais bring out the best in your kids, and our kids bring out the best in the Barumbais. And for those of you that worry about, is it too small of a school, is there enough diversity, are they understanding how the world works? They do, and they do it beautifully.
We have English language learners.
But they're a good community, all of them, every one of them. I'm proud of them.
That was a lot of warm fuzzies.
We're going to have one of these meetings every week.
Their next one will be over at the brewery.
Just in case we mentioned this last night, you know that part of the reason why we did an unconference conference was not to be different, but to try to remind you that we are accessible to you all the time. Please don't hesitate to talk to us, even if it's a small problem. I mean, hopefully a lot of you already know that. I mean, Jackie, I know fields calls and talks to people, but your classroom teachers are available to you as well. If you're worried that we don't have time, we do. We make time, whether we're teaching class or not, we cover for each other. If there's something on your mind, don't let it wait. Just come to us, and if it can be answered by one of us classroom teachers, I would ask that you do that, because we like Jackie here. We like her around. We don't want to overwhelm her all the time. But if you feel most comfortable contacting Jackie, sure. However it works. But please know that you don't have to wait for a conference. You don't have to have a reason necessarily, even if something's just nagging at you. Let us know.
And I've heard actually a lot of parents talking about worries with their kids transitioning to the public school. So please just put those on us as well, because we can probably help you out and just say, oh, you don't need to worry about that.
Or get them where they need to be.
So yeah, communicate with us, but also, even if it's just a quick email, like, is my son gonna survive? You know, we are here to help you rest easy with that.
John, if you don't mind, popped in the other day and said, my kid does not know his math facts well enough, so is he working on the book?
We're working on it.
Okay. I asked him about it the other day. I was like, have you done that?
So, you know, if any of those little things are striking you and you feel like we need to hit it, please know that you can communicate those little issues with us. We'll do our best. We would, you know, so right away we found the resource we thought would help Jacob learn those facts the best and copied him a little packet, and we'll try that. If that doesn't work, we'll try a new thing. Got a CD that could help. So, you know, if you feel like there are holes, and a lot of you are really great about communicating, keep in mind there are a million concepts out there that you wish your children knew. If there's a particular one that you're concerned about, we've got the resources, or we'll find them, and we can easily individualize for each of them. It's much more comforting for us to know that you have that access than for us to guess what you're worried about. Please don't do that to us. That has already taken 10 years off my life. It's time to stop. And then I feel terrible that we never introduced our younger kid teachers. I'm so sorry. If you don't know, this is Miss Erin, who teaches our kindergarten and first grade, also known as Tinies and Pints. And Miss Stephanie, would you like to say anything, Miss Stephanie?
Well, I teach the mid littles, and they're roughly second grade. And I'm the new teacher at Orsch, and I've just been absolutely blown away by the sense of community that is at the school. Last night was just a totally different experience other than regular parent-teacher conferences, and I feel like so much more was accomplished. And I'm just so grateful to be here, and I love all the big kids. I'm just, Shelby came into my room the other day and taught my kids a little half-hour art lesson, and then awarded them at awards, and I think both parties benefit, so I'm just so grateful for your kids and grateful to be here.
And she's not a new teacher. She's like she's been here with us since the beginning, which
She's
is
a
really
lifer.
Cool. Yeah, super cool.
She's an old teaching soul. Erin, did you want to say anything?
Not really.
That was my assumption. That was my assumption, and then I realized I missed. And then Miss Erica, who teaches Mid Plus.
Hello. And I did a lot of talking last night, so I'll just keep it brief and say I love your kiddos too, and it's wonderful to get to check in with them and get different big kid perspectives on things like Lady Gaga and all sorts of things that I might be out of touch with, and also just to have their energy around and have them as role models for our younger kiddos. It's really cool. So, and thanks for coming tonight. It's pretty neat to hear these conversations.
And I think that just as a side note, I absolutely love, when we have teacher meetings, we know that they're taking care of themselves out there. Look at us, there is not an adult out there. I'm sure they're all fine.
So Robin the Elks.
They probably won't clean up.
That's what I'm sitting here thinking about, what kind of mess is that?
But we trust them, they're capable little beings, and they're just wonderful. Anything else? Oh, I better look at the anonymous box.
Anonymous.
I just see you. That's exact thinking. Right. You didn't hear it, did you?
No.
I heard my name.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for coming.